now is the time to continue to talk about leadership, and we will have academic leadership forum. And I would like to introduce the chair of that forum, Professor Rytis Krušinskas from Kaunas University of Technology, School of Economics and Business. So please, Professor Rytis Krušinskas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's great to be there, and it's great to be in a live session of the conference. We used to that 2 years ago, but hopefully we are starting to regain or to get the speed back to what we had before. I need to read something, and this is the title, full title of the panel discussion that we will have today. Academic Leadership for the Sustainable Future, Academic Impact for Society, Evidence-Based Decision-Making, and Leading for Transformation. But before that, when I will announce or invite panel discussion speakers here on the floor, I will try to make a short overview about myself. I'm professor in finance. That's why I like when we have some more precision discussions, when we have clear answers, if it is possible, and at the same time we can argue. For me, as a guy from finance, I would say English language is perfect. Why it is so? Because in my understanding, net profit, net present value are clear ratios. So when half an hour ago, Živilė said, you should go for net working, I suppose that it was boring stuff, working and net. So means that you had to put some more efforts instead of drinking coffee and so on. But anyway, panel discussion, and it's a great honor, pleasure to invite here Jonas Čeponis, Vice Rector for Studies, Kaunas University of Technology. Welcome. Aurelija Valeikienė, Deputy Director of Center for Quality Assessment in Higher Education. Lithuania, of course. Dr. Zbigniew Pastuszak, Vice Rector for Development and Business Cooperation, Maria Curie Skłodowska University, Poland. Please take your seat. Asta Savanevičienė, Principal Investigator of Sustainable Management Research Group, School of Economics and Business, Kaunas University of Technology, Lithuania. Welcome. Eric Schopp, Dresden University of Technology, Dresden Faculty of Business and Economics, Chair of Business Information Systems, Germany. Welcome. Tamar Dolidze, Batumi State Maritime Academy, Georgia. Welcome. And the last but not the least, Josip Gavelaja, Riseba University of Applied Sciences, Latvia. Welcome. We do have very nice collection of participants. I hope that those participants will be able to share their experience, their thoughts, their ideas about the transformation which is happening in academia. I will try to provoke, stimulate the discussion, but for the warm-up, I would like to give the question which requires, one sentence only. What idea wakes you up in the night when you are starting to think about your career, about your working environment and academic transformation that is happening around? Who will start? It will depend whether we will go one direction or another. I will try to shift, but this time, Asta, please. Can you use the microphone, please? Switching up means
interdisciplinarity, very difficult word, but in research and studies, I feeling the need of interdisciplinarity.
Great. Please. Yeah. Next, please pass your microphone.
It's possible to answer just with one word.
Of course, if you choose like this.
Yeah, experience.
This gives me some more words for my answer.
Okay.
Great. When I wake up in the night, I'm reflecting as how long will my public state financed universities survive against all those actual offers from private institutions?
I would say mission impossible, but needed.
What?
Quality in higher education, transformation, leadership.
Thank you very much.
Usually during the night, I'm sleeping very well, and here is a very good place to sleep very well. But I'm thinking usually not sleeping, just on the early morning about the links between teams or networks.
Thank you. So continuous professional development and teaching combined with research is a kind of idea which is inseparable for me.
I would just say that deep design, working in academia all the way from purpose to finance, and you have network and development and ownership and everything in it.
Thank you very much. I hope that participants of this conference and those who are here in the room live understood that we were trying with organizers to invite for the panel discussion a diverse team which can take a look at transformation from different angles and different sides. Now I'm turning to those questions that were foreseen to be discussed in our panel discussion. And let me cite World Economic Forum. Over 50% of the current workforce will require reskilling by 2025. Yet, the ability to adapt to change and engage in lifelong learning must be developed from early stages. Studies show that early investments in children's learning and education generate significant economic returns. COVID-19 pandemic has both accelerated these trends and massively disrupted learning. Now the question, if the strategic leadership in economic recovery is expected from academia, will we manage to do it by the deadline? And the deadline is 2025, 3 years ahead. Is academia able to solve all the challenges and problems that current world is facing? So it would be great to have your reflection on the question. If we can say that a minute for the reflection, that would be fine. If it will take 1.5, okay. Who will start? Okay.
I'll dare to start. And I would say, do I believe that this target will be met? No. Is it worthwhile doing? Definitely yes. And why so? If we have very distant targets, we lose our inspiration. And as human beings, we tend to procrastinate and we lose focus if something is very much in the distance. So we need to have targets which are closer to us in order to understand the urgency. But on the other hand, can academia do it? No, not alone. Certainly, there is a tendency that people in higher education, which are the smartest people, are thinking very well about themselves, but not very good in networking and in connecting to the context. And what I'm missing is really working with the communities and working with the stakeholders, with the public authorities in order to make this transformation happen.
Thank you very much. Eric, please.
Okay, I'm a friend of bottom-up approaches due to my discipline. So I will start with an example. Technische Universität Dresden has implemented a university school. It's a public school as primary school, middle school, up to gymnasium. And they started 2 years ago and run completely into COVID-19. But they had the principle giving those young students from the first year, I have 2 of my children are in that school, from the first grade, the chance for self-organized learning. So there is no confronting by a teacher. There are modern pedagogic concepts, and those are assessed by PhD students from our pedagogic faculty because they implemented it. So this is a type, an example of evidence-based research. And I'm looking forward. My 13-year-old daughter explained to my mother, my wife, her mother, what is design thinking? What is a Scrum approach? They are doing that with 13 years of age. And so That's what I'm educating my students in the second year. So when this generation is there, it will not be 2025, some years later. But then I'm very hopefully that we really have a change from bottom up, from the beginning.
Who will take the microphone next? Okay.
So the answer is no. We will not reach the goal till 2025 because how to say, this process is continuous. So it's not, how to say, in 1 year every people on the earth, how to say, receive some competence. It's impossible. So I think the most important thing in all universities, in all schools, in these days is not the question what to learn, but how to learn. Because in these days we can get a lot of information, so now and here. So, but it's sometimes too difficult to find right information, to understand this information. And I think the most important thing that all the universities have to change the way how they, how to say, present this information and teach.
Thank you. Joseph.
I will add on that. I think my reflection would be on why I use the idea of the deep design. To answer directly to your question, I doubt that we can do it by 2025 or 2030, because I believe that's the continuous process. But what it takes to make it happen is the integration, and the integration would not start looking at the purpose of why we are doing it. And then to look on the purpose, we obviously have to look on the networks, how we are creating the partnerships, you know, and then how we are not getting lost in between, because sometimes the ownership can change in between. That ownership impacts the finance of what we are building. So that's, from my perspective, it's hard to achieve by 25. However, worth it or not, obviously, I think this is what we have to invest into it, but have in mind that there is a deep understanding into it, why we are doing it, and communities, for example, around us, we're going to impact it, how we're going to sustain it in the long term. And then obviously after that, the projects or anything that we will do is going to add up on each other, and, you know, the small goals for the bigger purpose. So that's kind of my thought on that.
I was listening to your answers to the question, and all of the words from the sleeping during the night were shown here in your speeches. I think the time 2020 is not a good deadline, because if you remember the beginning of the COVID epidemics, we were not prepared. I'm talking about, I think, mostly Polish public universities, to do all the teaching process online. And we did it. We survived, like bacteria in the not exactly good environment, right? So when we talk about the academia, we can survive, because when the public money will be finished, we will look for the money from the different kind of international projects or from the business area. And business is for sure ready to survive without academia. But looking at, for example, the keynote speech today, first or second keynote speech, very, very nice keynote speeches, we can see the different life, different world, right? We can be adapted to this world, but the world can be adapted to our offer, because we are researchers, we are researching the processes, and we probably can be better prepared than the business to thinking about the future. And business is doing money, doing the good things, exactly fit to the future. So everything will be okay. So don't be afraid.
That's promising, dear Tamara.
Okay, thank you. Once again, I will highlight this issue of so setting the deadline is not a good idea, but of course it's a must. And in our reality, we all witness that we were all forced to kind of take like an emergency transition during COVID-19 to digitalized learning environment. And once again, it's the example of my institution, Batumi State Maritime Academy, Georgia. I represent like an EFL community. So for us, EFL community teachers, So we more or less were kind of adapted to kind of attending massive online courses. At the same time, we were involved, for example, even during the pandemic in virtual exchange, thanks to Professor Schulp and Dresden Technical University, but still for our maybe faculty members and like for the department, it was more or less painful. But believe me, so as it was not quite a kind of easy for so other like so teachers maybe not very much digital natives, but still we are not digital native generation immigrants. We are digital immigrants, but still as a result of so joint efforts, institutional like a kind of so 24-hour working schedule, it was more or less successful transition. That's why I really hope that this deadline may be a little bit so not met, but still setting deadline is a good idea, and still we should continue working in this direction.
Eric wants to react. Yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry to jump in again. I had a long-lasting example coming from the scratch of students in the primary school. To speed up the competence development process up to 2025, we also have to come from the top. We have to reorganize our offers. So what I'm thinking about is exchanging 2 years master programs by 2 ECTS credits micro modules. And these done in blended learning, these done online, however we want to. This could help to reach the goal of 2025 a little bit, because our established and accredited conservative models are outdated, and the change, at least in Germany, takes 3 years. If I have a good idea until I could implement it. And in 3 years, I'm in pension.
Asta.
May I add something to Eric's?
Okay.
Eric's words. You are completely right. We are observing now, for example, the process when the enterprise is asking us as a university to prepare a very short kind of courses, exactly well fit to the, for example, kind of a computer, because I'm from computer science and logistics area, so few of us are from the same, not from the accountancy, but very close, very close.
Sorry, finance is not the accounting.
We understand the same numbers, right? And they ask us, is it possible to implement our software at your computer rooms, at the computer laboratories, and teach your students how to use the equipment? Because thanks to this, we will produce workers, possible co-workers or workers for our universities, our enterprises, when they are in the middle of the teaching course, for example, first or the second cycle, right? And we observe, for example, students from the computer science departments, they usually finish their education on the very first cycle because they have plenty of offers, of business offers, and they can earn more money than professors from the universities, and sometimes they can share some kind of salary to do some additional courses, but shortly courses, not exactly during the Bologna cycle, 3 cycles. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for
Asta. Asta, turn is yours.
I am HR person, so I do not believe in some deadlines. I think we have deadline not only in 2025, but we have deadline in next year, we have deadline in next day. So I believe that we as universities, as schools, as professors, as teachers, we should learn to our children to be not afraid to change themselves, to be flexible, and to be motivated, inspired to learn all the life. So I think it's more important things. And one more, now we talk about young people, about children, but we're aging society. Please talk about older people, and they are professional, and they are flexible also, or maybe we can motivate or encourage to be them flexible, because it's our very big potential and we can use them also. So don't talk about not young person. Please talk about older person. Yeah, okay. About us.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me sum up. Most of the panelists, they think that we are late by 2025. But anyway, we should learn from younger generation, and those who will learn will be more mature, because it looks like that younger generation is turning the learning curve opposite. What does it mean? They are learning more faster from technology, from their experience, and because of aging society, we can avoid conflict by making those both parties learn together. Okay, let's move to the next question. We are doing really, really fine, isn't it? Another citation, the report, which is having title, The Evolution of Science Education, issued by Oxford University Press a year ago, states that the core purpose of science education could be to inspire learners engage with science, to teach underpinning scientific concepts, to teach skills enabling effective experimentation, to help learners achieve the range of desirable outcomes through science. How valid are those concepts in the era of the digitalization? Does it prepare students to face challenges in the future? What are the modern world requirements to be integrated in the education curriculum? And this last point was already mentioned by our keynote speakers. Because when we are talking about those soft skills, we shouldn't forget, probably, I'm just guessing, but I'm trying to turn it on the discussion, we shouldn't forget other skills that are forming the base of understanding, knowledge, and so on. So your reflections, dear panelists, please. Who will start? Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll be starting with this as well. I'm a great believer in STEM education, but even more so in STEAM education, adding the arts and the humanities part. And I'm very much missing this part in the technocratic approaches. Technology is not running on itself. IE is programmed by people, and the values that we put into the algorithm and the machines, they perform according to the human projection. So therefore, we need to be talking about generic skills, but also very much about the values and ethics. And this is, I would say, was the biggest failure for the last years, that in higher education, somehow we talked about the third mission, and the third mission being engagement with the society, but we forgot the fourth mission of higher education. And can anybody cite what is the fourth mission of higher education?
All expectations on you.
Huh?
All expectations on you.
Okay. Okay, I'll spoil. The Council of Europe defined that the fourth mission is actually the development of the personality. So the ethics and the attitudes and the values. And I think the failure on the part of higher education community, and I don't mean a concrete institution, but academy as an establishment, is the reason why we see radicalism, the reason why we see conflicts and failures of diplomacy, and the reason why we see the current war in Ukraine, and the reason why we see Brexit, and the reason why we saw Trump and other radical politicians at power failing to unite the society, to hear the problems, not to alienate, but to engage with the totality of the problems, despite of the political affiliation. So I would say that higher education needs to embrace this mission to develop the personality. Unfortunately, when we look at the curriculum, at the content of study programs, I see the diminishing amount of credits devoted to the generic subjects and almost no subjects that would teach or inspire to think on philosophical terms and engage among the students and the professors and the community as well. So this is my wish for higher education, to embrace the personal development challenge of students and to lead with the example.
That's a very important point. I can see that Asta wants to react.
I fully agree with you. But what I saw last 10 years, we are going deeper in our sciences. Engineers goes in technical sciences, social scientists go in their sciences. And my words was interdisciplinarity. So it's not so broad approach as you now mentioned, but what I see now, at least what we are doing now, social sciences, we invite our technological partners to teach, to make common projects. But also I think that particular technological students, they need to develop their social and emotional competence. Because, you know, the computer has such magic button, undo. And you can do undo, it's no problem. But in life, you do not have this undo button. So I think it's very important sometimes people who are studying in engineering, in deep engineering, a little bit to say, stop and think. You are not alone. And not only technologies are around you, the people are around you. Because now I remember a very good statement, which has been said by Schwartz maybe 10 years ago. He said that human are predicting to be computers, predicting to be human. It's terrible, but it's true. So I think we need to think about development of emotional competence, about social competence, but of course we need to think about development of more or less but technological knowledge by social sciences students, how to say. So it's a little bit not so broad approach, but going a little bit step by step. And after that, maybe we can talk about philosophy and other typical for universities.
I suppose that Jonas can take that stone, which was thrown.
So I totally agree with Aurelia. But regarding your words, I can say that from technological point of view, maybe in the near future we will have undo button for people too. So
Undo or restart.
But talking more seriously, I can say that now, when we're talking about some basic knowledge, math, physics, chemistry, etc., it's very important. But for students, one of the most important thing is to know how this study process will help for him to later in his career, in his life. So, and I think we lack the ways how to explain for the students what science-based studies for them is a good start for their future.
Thank you. Who will pick Mike next?
Of course, I agree. But,
we are not fighting here. We are not fighting here. We are discussing.
I will include to this discussion an example from the research area. A few months ago, we did with my colleague Łukasz from his maybe. Oh, he's absent. Okay, from my department, we did the research regarding to this different kind of evaluation systems of evaluation of higher education. And David, as a keynote speaker, was described very clearly what is the what kind of expectations we can have to higher education leaders. So we did with my colleague a research paper regarding the comparison between Polish higher education system evaluation and the global universities or countries systems. And maybe some of you know the website or the Facebook profile. The reviewer second must be stopped. And one of the second reviewer, sent us the feedback regarding to our research. How stupid system you have in Poland. Why the stupid system? Because the system is dividing different disciplines, each by each, one by one, to the discipline. For example, chemistry, economics and accountants, finance, right?
Right in this way.
Business separately from the economics, psychology separately from different ways, philosophy separately, right? And the only links, the only team creating regulation rule is the expectation to publish the papers with some colleagues from different disciplines. Because when, for example, you can get some called points for the publication, not impact factor, but for example, 100 points or 200 points, this is the top, right? If you publish with your colleague from your department, from your discipline, you have to divide. For example, when I publish with you a paper for 200 points, so you have from the same discipline, you have 100 and I have 100. But if you are from philosophy and I am from the computer science and logistics, so you have 200 and I have 200. So everything depends on the leaders of higher education system, creators. So maybe I think David is right. So we have to choose better leaders, well fitting to the future, to the expectations of the future, right?
That's a very brave statement, dear Eric.
Okay, I would like to come back to the arguments in the beginning, answering this question. And I start with the statement, I do not like the term science education, because education sees us in the role of instructors, and we instruct science. What are we doing? Are we instructors anymore? I see us, and that would mean my interpretation of leadership, the change of the mindset of us teachers. We are more the enablers. I am more going for the connectivism, constructivism theory. And so it is not that I instruct scientific methods in the main part, but I enable my students by cases, realistic, authentic cases, to work, to interpret and choose from the set of methodology they have at hand in the internet, in the textbooks everywhere, and apply it and try out. And if these students are not working alone, but are working in teams, interdisciplinary teams, then it's what you just explained from the collegial side. So the students apply methods from different disciplines and try out how it would help in the teamwork and the solution. So I think coming back to the leadership, we need to have a shift around in our mentality. We are no longer instructors. That takes too long, and we always instruct what we learned 30 years ago.
Thank you.
If I might add on this one, I literally will support the idea what you say, the instructor. I like to use this expression, the facilitators, more. I used to run this program for master students, the design thinking for strategic innovation. It's literally having students from different fields, literally engineers, marketing, economy. Like, Joseph, we don't understand this. I'm like, guys, we have to work as a team from different fields to give me the real solution for this particular problem. So the idea how we can facilitate the learning and prepare them to be better leaders, because we have this gap, the age gap, the retiring the population and also the young generation. But in between, from my perspective, I see there is 15 to 20 years of the gap. How are we going to fill out the businesses if we don't have graduates who are ready to take those spots, and the limited number of the internship opportunities as well takes us back to the industry and business as well. They don't see in our students, for example, that they are ready to be employable. So, literally the idea of the facilitation, that's what I would take this one, and preparing them also from early first year to understand this critical thinking, the curiosity, that enables them to look on this hard skills from the soft perspective as well. So they can adapt to the changing environment faster, because digitalization is not going to stop, right? So that would be my spiel. Yeah, I mean, it's getting more and more involved into it. And I think I was mentioning to one of my colleagues today that a couple of weeks back, I was asked the question that we're talking about digitalization. Well, if you have the opportunity to give up your iPhone, all the services that you use today, would you do it? many say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'm like, not in my world, because that's what I do all business today. So you're taking away that, so I am building, and we're talking about this artificial intelligence, AI, smart cities, smart governments, right? That facilitation enables them to think wide and bigger, to be part of the society and get integrated faster and easier.
Thank you. Getamar, please.
Can I supplement this idea? Of course, I also, me as a EFL representative, myself, I'm involved in kind of projects related to developing critical thinking among students. And for us, for educators, it's like a biggest challenge to kind of encourage not only learning, not only like a second language acquisition. It's very important to kind of develop 21st century skills like 4 C's, starting from critical thinking. And this is first of all related to asking good questions, Socratic questions, because when I was a student myself, I was not feeling quite comfortable asking questions, because maybe we are more or less limited freedom of maybe expression or speech, but still nowadays our young generation, they must be encouraged. And this must be done through teaching English. And this is very important. First of all, when we talk about critical thinking, when we develop these skills, they will become a kind of ambassadors, and they will just reciprocally so boost the skills among their like friends. At the same time, when we think about critical thinking, this cannot be developed without creativity. Nowadays, we may not be creative persons, but of course, this can be also developed. Yes, and that's why critical thinking leads to creativity. And of course, when we talk about creativity in second language acquisition, this should be just very effectively combined more or less with creativity collaboration. Because nowadays, once again, pandemic and not only pandemic showed that without collaboration, without joining hands internationally and locally, so we are almost global citizens. Yes, it's impossible to achieve, and of course, it's impossible to meet any kind of deadlines. That's why it's important for us educators to perform this mission and complete the mission of educating another skill like a third C and while teaching language. And last and not least, in my opinion, of course, this is of course very important. Now, without clear communication, we would not be sitting here. Yes, it's very important that nowadays English is a lingua franca. Of course, it's like a dominant language nowadays. Once again, helps us to communicate clearly. And this is a kind of our mission to once again develop all these 4 skills. And this is one of our kind of like, challenge big at the same time. And of course, it's a comfort for as the EFL educators. That's my kind of just input to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It looks like we will have, as academia, we will have a huge challenge to find a smart leveraging between all those soft and hard skills, including all other issues that are related with current environment. But anyway, we have to move. And let me cite OECD report, Education at a Glance 2021. Governments are increasingly looking to international comparisons of education opportunities and outcomes as they develop policies to enhance individuals' social and economic prospects, provide incentives for greater efficiency in schooling, and help to mobilize resources to meet rising demands. The questions: what are effective state-of-the-art measures for quality of learning outcomes measurement? What policy levers could be proposed to make the process more consistent? What factors that shape these outcomes could be encouraging all stakeholders for investment into education to get social and private returns? Task is very tough. Who will pick the first mic? Okay, please. Take your mic.
I really like tough questions. I will be more comfortable when I speak Polish, right? But English is my tool, right? So I will try to communicate.
Sorry, we are not ready to learn Polish this evening. Sorry.
What was the question?
So what are measures for quality of learning outcomes that would satisfy all stakeholders?
I think it is impossible to find such a kind of measures because every day we are facing different problems, and these different problems has all the problem has a different kind of measure. I have 2 children, very, I think, not just at all, but aged, because some 26 and 22, this is enough to know a few words about the world, about life, about the school system and university system. And when I am looking at my daughter and my son activity regarding to the attending the classes, etc., they are exactly flexible, choosing the topics they are really interested in. So when I'm thinking about myself and my skills and my idea, what is their idea to develop these skills, this is completely different thing. If, for example, if we can do the research here at this classroom, and next ask the same questions to our children or our relatives, right? I'm sure there will be no correlation between our answers and the answers of the younger generation.
But let me react. Probably
yeah.
we are leaders to
Yes,
show the
yes.
way.
We have to listen carefully younger generation, because when we are not listen to the people, we are not ready to answer. One of experiences from this process of listening to the groups is a good experience when we mix the group of very older generation. I mean, we at our university, I think all the university has something like third age, how to say, older university, older people university, something like that, and kids universities. Like when we organize meetings of a group of younger students and older students, they are in the very, very good and very close touch. Why? Because the grandparents usually spend more time with the children. We as a parents, we have no time to spend the time with our children, right? But the grandfather, grandmother, they spend the time and they have the life experience. So I think we have to research the answers and listen to carefully the older generation and use our leaders' mind, skills, etc., to mix the ideas for the younger generation. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe not. Who agree with me? Not. Thank you.
Who agrees or disagrees?
Okay, I would like to take the floor next. I feel the context of your question leads to the question of the quality of higher education, because this is about measuring the outcome, perceiving that the outcome should demonstrate the quality of education and the value of education. And the very disappointing factor is that there is no objective measurement, that we have very many systems, and the systems in which we measure impact the result that we get. So in a way, there is no silver bullet, there is no magic metrics, how we could do that, because this will depend upon the perspective and who is measuring. And we know that expectations are different. If you ask, as we just discussed, young people, they have their perception of the life and their needs and expectations. Yes, the parent generation also have their experience and their views and wishes for the younger generation. When you ask people at the labor market what they expect from employees, there is yet another perception. And when you ask the public authorities what they need as an outcome of education, is yet something different. So I believe we need to have a diversity of instruments in order to satisfy those different needs. And that means that there needs to be an ecosystem of the measurement, and that we must stay vigilant that there are no neutral methodologies how we measure things. There's no objectivity in that. And this is a very well-known factor in physics. Yes, you start to measure something, you influence the object you are measuring. And this is the unexpected outcome of quality assurance. What you put in the methodology as your evaluation areas, criteria, and indicators steer the system in a certain way. As was in a keynote speech mentioned, if you start measuring how higher education institutions support the development of leadership within the institution, how the professionalism of middle-level managers and administrators is developed, you already have a clear indication that this is something worth spending your attention and resources on. And I very much agree with this wish. I wish that professionalism of everybody in leadership and in management be developed. And especially when we talk about professors and lecturers and readers in higher education, one aspect is the subject matter. But another very challenging aspect is actually the didactic part and delivering the message and being able to facilitate the learning, being comfortable with this new role, which is really requiring to step outside of your comfort zone, yes, outside of your ivory tower, and to engage with students and encourage their engagement and learning. This is a tough task. So I only wish good luck to all you.
As I remember, the first keywords was metrics for higher education. The second one,
Measure for quality.
Yes, quality. It means that when we would like to have a good results of higher education, we have to have a good quality. But what we need to have a good quality? Finance. Because we need a good people, we need a technologies, we need a good surrounding, we need money. But now we're talking about measuring. So as I mentioned before, I am HR people. And what I learned maybe 30 years ago, and I remember very good, don't try to measure effect of investments into HR because it's mission impossible. You can use different methodologies and you will have different results. And I remember, if you would like to measure the impact of HR on the final result, first, try to measure what impact is due to the technological changes. It's possible to calculate, it's not a problem. Next one, please measure the impact of organizational changes. And then all what remains, whether plus or minus, is impact of investment to HR. So I think sometimes we need just believe and to invest in people, in higher education. And we in higher education, I think we are going to do the best what we can.
Thank you. Who will pick the mic? Okay.
It was mentioned most important thing, money. So, and I think that now, I'm talking about our country, for example, but maybe the same situation in other countries too, that now these criteria or some metrics is used just to control financing. So, and I can say that we can use just one criteria. Maybe it will look quite strange, but the living age of the people. If we can see that we will live longer and longer, we can say that our education is quite good enough. Because if we have good education, we can create new technologies, we can create good social life, we can, how to say, cultural life, etc. And I'm not sure, I'm not checked statistics now, but as I remember, living age is increasing. So I can say that in totally, so I'm not talking about some how to say, more narrow aspects, but in total, I think that education is quite good. And if the, how to say, the whole humanity in near or longer future will reach a period when the living age will decrease. So we can say that we have big problem with education. So it's quite strange maybe, but
it's interesting. Dear Eric.
Okay, I liked what you mentioned about the influence the measurement has on the object we measure. My background of this declaration is I have been part of more than 35 accreditation commissions in German and international universities. And the utmost we could measure by applying those rules is that we can wake up the responsible persons on university side and that we can find out if they really care for quality, but we cannot measure what quality outcome would be. So I'm completely with you. If we want to measure outcome of teaching and learning processes, again, I think we must go really down to the specific course module. And let me give you an example. We run for 20 years, Tamara mentioned it before, internationally mixed team learning projects on case-based learning, always international teams, 6 to 8 students in a team. And we have e-tutors qualified who supervise daily those team learning processes as it takes place completely online and people otherwise would get lost. And now the measurement comes. The e-tutor for interventions in this team, not that team, calling specific persons is looking for indicators. So what we try to do, and this is just in our small project area, it's only fitting tool for this type of courses. What we do is we define effective indicators and then go down to the data level and do social learning analytics and fill up those indicators. And we are running on a closed platform in the cloud, so we have access to the data. We have already also the agreement of each student for anonymized or pseudonymized measurement, as the grading finally is also an outcome of these data-driven measurement. So we can do it, but it's affording a lot of transaction costs to implement it, and this system is only fitting just for this type, for this format of a teaching module. It can't be just exchanged to other courses. So I'm with you. We can just try to wake up a positive quality focus on the other side.
Yeah, Tamar or Josep?
Just really compliments the case that in humanities. So measurement is very closely linked with evaluation. So this evaluation can be formative and summative at the same time. But so at the same time, unfortunately, in our reality, Georgian reality, for example, if students' outcomes and they are measured, and their competence, language competence, they are measured during job interviews, and when they fail, actually, kind of like no one goes and no one actually kind of like starts to take systematic approach, and somehow we are teachers, educators, we are more or less blamed. That's why it's very important to to introduce and launch systematic measurement tools, and in tandem with Quality Assurance Center, together with curriculum, constant development of the curriculum, because this is our biggest headache. That's why it's not only results and outcomes should be measured and at the same time evaluate. I think that during the progression of studies, during the progression of the academic programs, so it should be intervened. Intervention is a good idea, always good idea, and they are welcome. That's why I think it's a process which should not be done at the end of the process when it's very difficult to remedy and to prevent. It should be timely prevented.
Thank you. Dear Joseph, will you have something to add?
I promise you just a short one. What I want to say about this particular question, when I think about this one, it sometimes gives me a smile, because we try to measure the education and its impact, right? And there's someone who likes that design thinking and looking on the processes and everything like that. It again takes me back to this deep thinking, but touching the idea of the governance, right? some of our colleagues mentioned about the finance, right? You also have to think that government's part of it, like how we are generating the money. But when we also think about the quality perspective, how we are measuring certain outcomes, right? It's the tough process, because in one area, let's say in the one cluster, it might be totally different approaches. And then how are we gonna go and compare do this one to another one? And then are we going to have a unified version of it? So for me, that's still open question. You know, I don't see the right outcome in there. What we can do is a try. Because if we go the left in a different area, we're going to have a different challenges that we all together have to outcome and work on this one. Yeah.
Okay, if I will sum up this question,
But,
I will wake more.
but can I?
Okay, of
But
course.
don't forget about the strange systems like Chinese introduce. Maybe you know the system of pointing of people for the skills, for the habits, for the everything. If you cross the street on the red light, they give you -100. If you finish the study in Germany, for example, they give you 1,000 point plus. I'm honestly speaking, I'm closer to German systems of evaluation, because I know we all know that Germans are straight and very effective in different kind of measurements. But Chinese systems is not a good idea for education, higher education. But they, for example, they have indicators for everything, for the younger, older, and the old ones. So sorry for this.
It was a kind of serious Squid Game, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like when we are talking about the quality of measurement, one word comes to my mind, it's professionalism, which is hard to measure, but which we should aim for it. Okay, and as we have 4 minutes left, I have one question more, with the short answers required. British Journal of Educational Studies, 1999, paper by P. Davis. Evidence-based education is not a panacea, but is a set of principles and practices for enhancing educational policy and practices. More than 20 years passed, OECD 2021, paper about building the future of education. It states that compared with other public policy domains such as health, education has been slow in developing into a fully evidence-informed system. The question, is the speed of transformation acceptable for academia, reasonable for student, agreeable for local business communities and government? Very last sentences or ideas, how we can move further. Dear Eric.
Very short. I demand that we have to leave the ivory tower. So we must go out to practice. My example in the answer to the first question was that university school, where my colleagues go for evidence-based research, putting their master thesis, PhD thesis, they send those colleagues into this school to observe daily what they are doing with its pupils and what's the outcome of that. So this is evidence-based. If we in business management want to go more for evidence-based research and education, we also have to go out into business, into the companies to apply our theories and watch the effects of that. And so my demand is go out, leave the ivory tower. That is it. And then we will get the evidence out there.
Asta.
I think we do that because all our master students for 20 years, they are students from business. And now our bachelor, when in the third course, she or he is not working, what he or she is doing here. And when you are going teaching for people who work in business, you should something understand. As you said, you should be more or less in business. You should be parallel in business. You should provide some consultation, some seminars, or to do some business.
You mean academia person?
Yeah, I think in this case, we need some synergy, very strong synergy, but I think we have.
Thank you. Dear Jonas.
The answer to your question is no.
No? What was the question?
Is the situation is okay or not regarding
No, how we
regarding
can move further, or what next should we do? What steps we should do next?
In this case, I totally agree with you, and I think we have to increase, how to say, the teaching staff participation in practice. So and bring this real life into our study process, because now we are, how to say, now we more speak about science-based studies, not about a practice.
Evidence-based.
Evidence-based.
Yeah, please.
May I very shortly react to that? I'm with you, but this approach that contact to practice must be honored by the system. The long my faculty demands from me to write scientific papers in 8 journals, and that's all they want as a measurement. Why should I go outside to a company? And I would save the time to write the better paper. So, or why do I apply for funding money? Colleagues are telling me invest the same time for an A+ paper in a journal. That's better for our faculty. So we have to adapt our measurement as institutions.
Yeah, Aurelia. Can we get a microphone? Asta wants to react.
Few words. What I see also a very good trend, I think. It's our business. They're interested in sciences. And they are trying to do some research in enterprises. And I think it's very good synergy, trying to be together, business and education. And now I see that in Lithuania.
Thank you. Yeah, Aurelia.
Very briefly, I would agree with colleagues, nothing to disagree about. So basically, yes, we do need to get out of the ivory towers. We need to engage with the communities, but also with the politicians, because without this link to the public policy, there is a great disconnect. And the thing that I'm most disillusioned or dissatisfied is when I learn of certain research on education. And I know that some recommendations were made, but nobody cared to inform, for example, us about this reform, or I'm sorry, not this reform, this research results. So publishing the research results is not enough. It's actually bringing further to the policy level, to the implementation level is very much needed. And this again goes back to the synergies and the need to care for education with common effort, because without that, we are doomed.
And clear communication, what you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Dear Zbigniew.
Yes, I agree. But answering to 3 elements of your question, maybe, yes, and no. What will change the academy? Does academy will change? Maybe. The politicians will be changed, the government and the people responsible for everything. No, but we have to do all the best we can do to teach people, because, and this is yes, because they can change academy as well. And for sure, every 4 years, they will change the politicians. And this is, I think, shiny future for us, all of us.
Can add from my viewpoint that, of course, nowadays currently doing and only literature review papers is a good idea, but of course it should be evidence-based, based on kind of research, based on demands and needs of current, like our just target audience, like students, and doing interdisciplinary research, like for example, together with colleagues of mine from Georgia. And so Joseph, we are doing research how to integrate PBL in EFL classroom for sustainable education. And of course, doing this small research, of course, we surveyed like more, not like much, but 100 respondents. So we think that we can at least so initiate this issue and once again start just implementing and putting this into practice. So I think that it's very important that each result should be result and outcome oriented, of course, but it should a kind of integrate. So all stakeholders, starting from our just main audience member students, we as educators, of course, authorities and local just government. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph.
I'll just say it shortly. I think that big part for me is that looking on the transformation and how it's happening between industries and higher education, that's that continuous process in there. And evidence-based is something that we definitely need to get out and have more of us involved into it. And I think on the keynote speech we had that, you know, we have to be the ones to make the change. And for us, if we have to upscale, let's do it together, and then that's gonna bring more for the better development. And that's when the government support, maybe. You know, again, this government's part is always the pain, but you know, that's something we can go away from. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Looks like we ran out of time. Unfortunately, we don't have the time for any questions, but I hope that our listeners, those who are looking for us at Zoom and here, we are full of different ideas how to move further. It's just a question when we will start. Today? Tomorrow? You know, English language has a very nice wording. Yes, of course, no. So let's do it right now when we can. Thank you very much. And let's keep moving further. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Rytis, and thank you all the panelists for extremely interesting discussions. And a lot of hot topics were touched. So thank you very much. So save the dates for the next year. I hope that it will be enough rooms in Malta, enough hotels for us.